Hello, and in this video you learn to create this awesome Matrix app, which includes animations with frame of motion, the Matrix training code, modals, a responsive design, and a custom scroll bar. Without further ado, let's begin. As usual, the first thing we're going to do is create a new folder and drag it into Visual Studio Code. Matrix app, and drag it into your Visual Studio Code. Yes, I chose the authors, and now we can open our terminal by clicking View and Terminal. In here, we'll run the command npm create vite at latest. Next, / to create the app in this directory, React, JavaScript, and now we can run npm install. Once that is done, you can run this command. This will install all the necessary dependencies that you'll need for this website. Next, you can run npx tailwind css init-p. This will create the necessary config file for Tailwind CSS. Also, you can go to this website and copy this to paste in your Tailwind config file. So we can go over here and paste it into here. Next, you can copy this and paste it into your index.css inside your source folder. So you can remove all of this and paste only this. Also, what we can do is remove app.css, go to app.jsx, and remove everything inside the return statement, remove all the imports, and remove this use state. Now we have an environment with which we can actually start working on the app. First thing we'll do is run our application. So we can go back to the terminal, run clear, and say npm run dev to start the work environment. Also, as usual, we'll test if Tailwind CSS works by saying h1 class name text-red-500 text-50 pixels and say hello. We can control click into our local host, and as you can see, we have this text in red and big, which means everything is working fine. Next, we'll create all of our components. We can go into our source folder and create a components folder. In it, we'll create all the parts of our application. First is going to be the navbar.jsx. You can run RAFCE on it. To be able to run RAFC and other snippets like this, you can go to extension and download this extension, ES7 plus React, Redux, React Native. It is a very useful extension that I recommend to download. Next, you can create the hero section, RAFCE, features.jsx, RAFCE, testimonials.jsx, RAFCE, pricing.jsx, RAFCE, footer.jsx, RAFCE, and finally, matrix training code.jsx, RAFCE. Now we can create an index.js file in the components folder to import and export all of these components. So we can say import navbar, import features, import testimonials, import pricing, import hero, import footer, import matrix rating code, and I think that is it. Now we can export all of this. So say navbar, features, testimonials, pricing, hero, footer, and matrix rating code. Now we can go into our app.jsx and place everything here. We can say div, class name, min-h-screen, and paste in all of the components but the matrix rating code. Also we can say overflow-hidden. So we can put in our navbar, our hero, our features, our testimonials, our pricing, and finally our footer. We didn't place the matrix rating code yet because it acts as a background in our app, not as one of the components. So we can go back here, and as you can see, all of the components are placed correctly, which means everything is working so far. Now we can begin the development of the matrix rating code. Usually we would begin with creating the navbar, but without the matrix rating code, the other elements wouldn't make sense. So first of all, we'll create a div to store all the other elements. It will simply make them in a column. So we can say class name, flex-call, nothing serious. Next, in here, we can actually put the matrix rating code and say class name equals absolute inset-0. Next, we can actually go to the matrix rating code and begin creating it. First, we'll have some imports from React, so use effect and use ref. Next, in here we can create the actual ref, so const canvas ref equals use ref and say null over here. Next, we'll have a use effect, a rather large use effect, because this is where most of the functionality will be stored and used. So in here we can say const canvas equals canvasRef dot current. Const ctx equals canvas dot get context 2D. Then let width equals canvas dot width equals window dot inner width. So first thing we're doing is setting the parameters for the overall canvas on which we'll have the rating code. Next, well, we obviously have height. Height equals, as you would have guessed, canvas dot height equals window dot inner height. Next, we'll say let columns, because the whole thing is going to be divided into columns, equals math.floor width divided by 20. Next, we can say const characters, and in here we'll put the characters that are going to be going down. So we can put some letters from the alphabet, for example, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. And put the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we'll have a combination of letters and numbers raining down. Next, we can say const char array equals characters. We need to make this characters, not character. Dot split, and like this. And let, not in here, let drops equals an empty array. Next, we'll have a loop for let I equal 0, like we usually do with a loop, smaller than columns. So what we're going to be doing is looping through all of the columns and saying I++. Next, we do this, and we say drops I equals 1, like this. Next, we'll define the speed of the drop. So we can say let frame rate equals 25 in this case. If you want it to be a little faster, make it 30. I would not go below 20 and above 30. You can, but I think these are the optimal speeds. And say let last frame, not like this, last frame time equals date dot now. And now we're actually going to be creating the whole animation with the draw function. Equals like this. In here, what we'll do is say ctx.fillStyle and say equals RGBA 0.04. So quite a lot of zeros. ctx.fillRect equals, or rather not equals, but some parentheses with 0, width and height, which we created before. Next, what we'll also do is say ctx.fillStyle and equal hashtag 0f0. This will be the green color for all the characters. Now we'll actually draw the characters themselves. So ctx.font equals 15 pixels, monospace. Next, we'll create a for loop. So for I, let I equals 0, I is going to be less than drops.length, and I++. Then we'll put our usual parentheses. In here, we'll say const text equals char array math.floor math.random. So this will generate all these random characters and say char array dot length. And instead of saying it like this, we need to make it like this. So after char array, we have these square brackets, not circle ones that I did before. Then we say ctx.fillText. And in here we say text, I times 20, and drops, I times 20, like this. Next, without leaving the for loop, we'll go into the next part, in which we'll create an if statement, saying drops, I times 20, bigger than height. In that case, we'll have math.random bigger than 0.975. And we'll actually create what happens if that's the case. We'll say drops I equals 0. Drops I plus plus. Now we go out of these brackets and out of these brackets to the next part of our matrix written code effect. We have drawn out all of these text and characters. Now we'll need to animate them. So we'll say const animate equals, so basically a classic arrow function, and we'll say const current time equals date.now. Then const elapsed time equals current time minus last frame time, a variable that we created quite long ago. Then in here we can say if elapsed time bigger than 1000 divided by frame rate. In that case, we'll say draw. And last frame time equals current time. We can go out of this if statement and say request animation frame like this and say animate. And under this, we can say animate and call the function. Then we'll say const handle resize. So another arrow function. In here, we say width equals canvas.width equals window dot inner width. And I made a mistake. These need to be curly brackets, not square brackets. I was wondering why I didn't get any odd suggestions. Window dot inner width. Next, we can say height equals canvas dot height, and we do the same thing. Window dot inner height, like this. Next, we can say columns equals math.floor width divided by 20, and drops equals this. Next, we have a for loop which says let I equals 0. I is less than columns, and I plus plus. If that's the case, we say drops I equals 1. Then we can go out of here and out of here to the last part of our use effect. This final part will be made for mobile devices, because if we leave it like this, what might happen is that every time a person scrolls, the animation restarts, which creates the very unpleasant effect for the eyes. Which is why we'll say const is mobile device equals, in here we say slash mobi slash I dot test window dot navigator dot user agent. Next, we say if not is mobile device, we say window dot add event listener, resize, and handle resize. And finally, we can have a return statement. And in this one, we'll have if not is mobile device. So we can just simply copy all of this. So copy this and paste it. I made an error, so this should be like this. And it seems that there are no grammatical errors in my code, which is obviously good. And finally, we can work on the return statement for React. And this is going to be the easiest part. We don't even need these brackets. We can remove them. And we can say canvas. And in this canvas, we can say class name fixed, top dash 0, left dash 0, z dash minus 1. Also, what we can do is say ref equals canvas ref. And we can leave this part empty, actually. So if everything has worked fine, we should have ourselves a matrix threading code effect. And if we reload the page, there is some kind of error. Let's see what it is. And I've made a small grammatical error. Instead of saying test, I said est. Now let's see if this works. And for some reason we simply have a massive green canvas, which is not what we wanted. Now we'll correct all the errors that we had. Well, first of all, I'll add this final bracket. Next, we had an error over here, saying math.flow, not math.floor. And we had an error over here, where autocorrect didn't work. Now we need to have window. And we have the most subtle error of all. Over here we say RGBA 000.4. The thing that's an error is this space. If we remove the space, everything should work correctly. And yes, now we have this matrix effect working. And as you can see, all of the other components are on top of it, not actually interacting with it. So the most difficult and important part of our website is done. Let's begin working on our navbar. We can go back here and into our navbar file. We can remove this and add a nav instead of a div. Also, we'll have some imports. First of all, it's going to be motion from framer-motion, and it's going to be link from React Scroll. This is going to make our nav links easily scrollable, and it's going to make the animation feel much better. In here, we can say class name of flex items-center, flex-grow, padding-4, margin top-3, bg-transparent. And here we'll have a motion div. This will store our title. We will have an initial state, so initial. It is going to be opacity of 0, so invisible, and x of -100. Next, we will have an animate of opacity of 1, so we'll actually have it appear, and an x of 0. Next, we'll add a transition. This transition is going to have a duration of 0.8 and a delay of 0. Inside of, and we'll also have a class name. The class name is simply going to be flex items-center. In here, we're going to have just one h1, which is going to be our title. It's going to have a class name of text-00ff00, cursor-pointer, hover text-white, text-excel, so we're making it responsive instead of giving it a pixel value, font-bold, and finally margin left-6. The text can be matrix app or whatever you like. If we go back to our app, as you can see, we have this text. If we reload the page, the text will slide in from the left. Under this motion div, we can create another motion.div. The animation for this one is going to be very similar to the previous one, so we can simply copy it and change only one detail. This is going to be -50. And this is going to be y, and this is also going to be y instead of x. Otherwise, the animation should be the same. Next, we'll have a class name of flex-call, md flex-row, lg flex dash row, items dash center, text dash 2XL. This is going to make it stand out on mobile version, justify dash center, and flex dash grow. And here we can have another motion div dot div with a different sort of animation. The initial is going to be y of 20. The animate is going to be y of 0. The transition is going to be similar as before, but it's going to have different values. So a duration of 0.6, so it's going to be faster, but it's going to have a delay of 0.2. And it's also going to have a class name of text-gray-300, hover text-white, margin x-4, cursor-pointer. In here we're going to have our link, and it's going to be about. For this link we're going to have some parameters, so 2, features, smooth, which will make the scrolling smooth and realistic. Next we're going to have a duration of 500 milliseconds, and an offset of -70. With this value you can change how fast you want the scrolling to be. If you add more, the scrolling will be slower. Less, the scrolling will be faster. And here we can simply copy this motion.div and add 2 more of them, 1 and 2. Next, we'll actually have to change the names and values for our nav links. So we can change this to testimonials and change this to pricing. We'll also have to change these values to testimonials, actually pricing over here and testimonials over there. Like this. Next, we'll go out of all of these motion divs into a new one. Motion.div. This motion div is also going to have a transition, which we can copy from the initial one. So let's copy this. Let's go in and copy it, because the transition is essentially going to be basically the same. And we can also add the same class name as there, so flex and items-center. Inside we can add a button with a class name of text-hash00ff00, margin right -6, border dash, also green border, so hash00ff00. Next we can have a border -2, bg transparent, h-10, padding x-4, rounded -ml, md, hover, bg actually we don't need this, we simply need hover, and text-white, font -semi-bold. And this button is going to have a name of contact. For now, it's not going to be a clickable button. So now we have this. And it changes the text when we hover over it. If we do this, as you can see, it also has an animation. And this is our navbar. Now we can move on to the next section, the hero section. Only one thing we need to do before that is remove this minus. Because if we go back here and reload the page, the animation will go from right to left, as it should, not from left to right. So, as you can see, this is now correct. We can go to the hero section now and import some stuff. And here we're going to have motion, just like before, from framer-motion. In here, we can go into our div, remove this, and create a new one. It's going to have a class name of bg-transparent. And it's going to have an ID of home. Also, we're going to have another div inside of it with another class name of container. This is going to be our main div, essentially. mx-auto. flex-call, padding bottom-10, md padding bottom-40, items-center, justify-center, h-screen, and padding x-6. So we're essentially making it so that only the hero section is visible when you open the page, and the navbar, of course. Inside, we're going to have an motion.h1 with an animation as before. So we can say initial. That is going to have an opacity of 0, a y of -20. Then we can have an animate. It's going to have an opacity of 1 and a y of 0. Next, the transition. It's going to have a duration of 0.8 as before, and a delay of 0.2. And finally, the class name. It's going to be text-4xl, so massive text. LG, actually, first of all, MD text-4xl, LG text-6xl, also font-bold, text-white, margin bottom-6, margin top-24, and text-center. And here we can add some welcome text, so welcome to Matrix app. Under this motion h1, we can add the motion.p. This motion p is also going to have an animation, just like its father, and it's going to be initial, not some random function. It's going to be an opacity. Actually, we should just copy it because it's going to be a very similar animation to the title. Only the delay is going to be larger over here of 0.4. Otherwise, it should be the same. Also, the class name, text-lg, md text-4xl, lg text-2xl. Actually, we can make it xl, not 4xl, that's too much. Text-white, margin bottom-10, and text-center. And we can say experience the power of the matrix. And if we go back, we have this. We will also have a button under it. Not te, but there. We'll have a button under it. But as we're going to be using this button in lots of places, we're going to make it a separate component, a custom button. So we can go back here and add our custom button. It is going to have a text of get started and a link of features. Next, we can go into components and create our new component. So in here, we can say custom button.jsx. We can say RAFCE and make some imports. First of all, it's also going to have an animation, so we can import motion. Motion from framer-motion. Also, it's going to be a link, so we can say import link from React-scroll. This is going to be a rather short component, so it's going to be a motion.button with an animation of initial opacity -0, scale 0.8. Going to make this an equal sign, not a colon. Then animate. As always, like this, and opacity -1 to make it appear, and scale of 1. So we're going to make it bigger as it animates. Next, a transition. It's going to have a duration of 0.8, just like most of our animations, and a delay of 0.6, so quite a long delay. Next, class name bg-white, bg-opacity -20, so it's going to look gray. Hover bg-opacity -80, text-green -500, hover text-green -600, font -semi-bold, padding y-2, padding x-6, rounded -full, and shadow -LG. Inside, we're going to have a link, and that link is going to say to. That's going to take it to link, which you're going to add later on. Smooth, true, as always. Duration of 500. Class name of cursor-pointer. And over here we can create our props. So it's going to accept, let's check what it accepts over here, a text and a link. So a text and a link. And inside of here, we're going to have our text. Like this. So now, if we save it and go back, if we restart it for some reason, there is an error. So we must have made some mistake. And that is not importing the custom button. We can import it and export it through the index.js. So import custom button, export, so custom button like this, and go back to our hero section. What you can do is essentially like this and control space. As you can see, custom button appears and the import automatically happens. So now if we go back, this did appear. Although for some reason it isn't rounded, so I guess we smushed some elements together. And instead of rounded, we put founded. This should fix the issue. Also, for some reason, we didn't get some proper padding. So for that, we can say padding -3 maybe, or padding -5 even. This should make it bigger. And as you can see, when we hover over it, the button becomes white and the shade of green changes to a darker shade of green. Now, let's move on to our features section. Alright, so let's go back into our file and folder structure and go into our features section. And here we'll make some imports. So first of all, motion as before, and it's going to be from framer motion. Then we can import some images. So we can say import comms from /assets/comms.svg. We can copy all of this. I'll leave all the images in the video description. So we can say earphone, and in the next one we can say location. Next, in here we can make it a section. Also, we can stop the terminal from running and install something. npm install react-intersection-observer. This will allow us to see if the element is in view. So now we can run the application again and remove the terminal. And while we're doing that, we can say import use in view from React intersection observer. And we can remove the terminal. Now in this section, we can say class name bg-transparent padding x-10, padding y-10, margin bottom -340 pixels. Next, what we'll do is say id features, and the next thing we'll do is say ref equals ref. Now we'll actually create said ref and say const ref in view, simply in view, not use in view, equals use in view. These kind of brackets, a little bit of lag for some reason, and this should work now, yes, and trigger once to true, and a next in here we can add another div which will have a class name of container and a max-auto. In here we'll have an h2 which will have our title for this part, and we'll say text-3xl, md text-5xl, font-bold, text-white, text-center, margin bottom-10, and we'll say key features. Next, under this div, under this h2, we create another div. In this div, we'll have a class name of grid calls -1, md grid calls -3. We need to put a dash over here and over here, and we'll say a gap of 8. So basically, in our mobile version, everything will go in one column. In our normal version, we will have 3 elements on the screen in a row. And in here, we can actually create the motion.div, the actual elements, and with some animations. First of all, we can have initial equals opacity 0, y 20. Next, we can say animate. This animation is going to be a little different because we'll also have an in view. So we can say opacity in view. If in view is true, then we'll say 1, else 0, and y also in view 0, 20. So the first elements we had are always triggered when a person essentially goes into the website or reloads the page there. Because, well, we don't need it to happen again. The person already goes into the website in the hero section. Here though, if we don't do this, it will happen automatically, even though we can't actually see the element, which is not what we want. And finally, we can add a transition, and it's going to be simply duration of 0.8. No need to write any delay over here. And let's not forget to put these brackets over here. And a class name, of course, flex-call items-center. In here, we'll have a proper image, img, with a source. This source is going to be comms. For some reason, there is an error. I do not know why. Oh, because I put square brackets, not curly ones. Comms. And this is also going to have a class name of w-16, h-16, object-contain, and the margin bottom -4. Next, we can add h3 with the title for this feature. Currently, it's just going to be feature 1. And it's also going to have a class name of text-xl, font-bold, text-white, margin bottom -2. Under this, we'll have the text for this feature card, and it's going to have a class name of text-gray-300, text-center. This, and just some random text. This is some text about the matrix. This text is just a placeholder, something like this for me. And what we can do is simply copy this motion div and paste it multiple times, specifically 3. Feature 2, feature 3, and we won't change any of this because this is simply placeholder text just as I wrote. Let's see if this worked. So let it reload. No errors for now, that is good. And as you can see, we have these 3 features. We could expand this text to make it look more long, so we can do the same thing, like this, and like this. And we can reload it. And as you can see, there is a small animation of it appearing from the bottom, which is exactly what we wanted. So now we can move on to the next section. Also, if you scroll up to the hero section and press get started, it will smoothly scroll you to the key features section. We'll be adding these buttons to each of the sections. So we can do just that. We can go over here into the div in between the section, the final div, and add a custom button that we've created previously. Also, we'll put it in a div to position it properly. So div, class name, flex and justify dash center. In here, we'll say a text. The text is going to be next section, and the link is going to be, next section is going to be testimonials. For now, nothing will happen when we click on the button because, well, we don't have a testimonial section yet. We can also say margin top -5 maybe, or 10 better, to give it some space with the other features. Let's continue. The next section is going to be the testimonials section. For this, we can go to our testimonials component and import some stuff. First of all, we'll import use effect. Next, we can import motion as always. And in here, use animation. In here, we'll be using a slightly different approach of animating our component. It's still going to be using frame motion, but with a use effect, and simply pasting it into our animate parameter. You'll see which one you like best for yourself. And we can say import custom button, and we're done with our imports. Before we go into the return statement, we need to do some stuff here. First, we'll create an array of testimonials. This is not necessary, but it is preferred. Testimonials, like this. Inside that array, we'll have multiple objects, which will have an ID, a name of the person who made the testimonial, say John Doe, and his quote. So we can say, I really liked this product and the website, whatever. Next, we can simply put a comma here and copy this 2 more times. So 1 and 2. We can change the ID numbers to 2 and 3 and change the names. Jane Smith, for example, some random basic names, and say David Johnson. Outside of the array, we can say const controls equals use animation and call the function. After that, we can create a use effect in which we have a callback function as usual. And in here, we'll create a function, a handle scroll. This will be an arrow function, although you can create it as a normal function. And you can say const testimonials section equals document dot get element by ID and testimonials, like this. Next, we can say const destructure this with top equals testimonials section dot get bounding client react or rect, and then say const is visible equals top smaller than window dot inner height minus 100, like this. Next, outside of these things, we can say if is visible controls dot start, and in here we can add our usual animation. For example, here we can say opacity 1, scale 1, like this. We can go outside the function now and say window dot add event listener scroll and handle scroll. Then we can have a return statement. So return, and I believe we need to do it like this. And in here we'll say window dot remove event listener scroll with nothing else. And in here we'll add an array with controls. Finally, we can move on to actually working on the section. And I did make a small mistake, which probably wouldn't affect anything, but in this return statement, we can actually remove the outer brackets, like this. Also, what we can do is go into our return statement and create the section that we want. So section, and like this. Here we'll add the class name of bg-transparent. This will be quite an interesting background. bg-opacity-20, backdrop, filter, backdrop, dash blur, text-md will creating the glass morphism background. Also, padding x-10, padding y-16, margin bottom-300 pixels. And in here we can say id equals testimonials. In here we can say a div, which will have a class name of container and mx-auto. In here we'll have first of all an h2, which will say testimonials. It will have a class name of text-3xl, md text-5xl, font-bold, text-white, text-center, and margin bottom-10. Under this h2, not on the div, under the h2, we can create another div which should hold all of the testimonials. We'll have a class name of grid cols-1, md grid-cols-3. As you can see, the setup is very similar to the features section. And gap-8. In here, we can say testimonials.map testimonial, a single one, I believe like this and like this. Inside of here, we'll have a motion.div. Every map item needs to have a key, so we can say key equals testimonial.id, which we've created over here. Next, we can say class name of bg-white, bg-opacity-10, p-8, rounded-lg, and shadow-lg. Next, the actual animation. First of all, the initial state. Initial state will be opacity of 0. Next, a scale of 0.9. And for the animate, we will simply say controls, which is why we've created it over here. Next, we also have a transition, which will take duration of 0.8 seconds as usual. Let's stop this like this and say duration of 0.8 seconds. Finally, in here we can say p class name text-gray-300 margin bottom-4 and testimonial.quote. So testimonial.quote. Next, we'll have another p tag, which will have his saying, or rather his name. Okay, text-white, font-bold. And in here, we can say testimonial.name. Finally, we can go out of some divs, specifically out of this one. So we'll have two divs under us and say another div, which will have a class name of flex justify -center margin top-10. In here, we will have a custom button, which will have a text of, say, next section, pricing, something like this, or just next section, and with a link of pricing. This should be it if there are no errors, which there might be. So if we reload the page, and it doesn't lag, there appears to be an error. Let's see if a terminal is running. It very much is. And let's see what we haven't imported, which is most likely the cause of the error. And we didn't put a second argument over here. For this, we'll simply put handle scroll as well. Now this is working. And now we have another section with an animation. And as you can see, we have this glass morphism background. And this technically white background for the sections, but because it has a very low opacity, it seems gray. Although there's one mistake, and for some reason, the text isn't white. This is because we haven't put a space over here. Now we actually have bold and white text. If we click on here, it should bring us to that section, and it very much does. So if we reload the page, the animation does work. So now we can begin working on our final section, which is going to be our pricing. And we will also have a footer. Let's begin working on it. We can go into our pricing component and remove this and say section. Also, we won't have any much imports. The imports will simply consist of import, motion as always, use animation. In here, we will have a use effect and a use state, which will be used for our modal, and we can say from framer-motion. Also, we can import modal from react-modal. Now, in here, we can say class name bg-transparent. This is not going to have any glass morphism. Padding x-10, padding y-16, and we can give it an ID of pricing. Inside the section, we can have a div, which will be container, as before. Container, and mx-auto. All these mx-autos position it in the center. We can have an h2 as always. I mean, we could technically just go to testimonials and copy it because it's literally the same every single time. So we can go in here and paste in this text, only change it to pricing. Under here, we will have the same thing with our columns and the grid design, so we can also copy and paste this under which div? Under this div. And we can put the closing div over here. In here, we will in fact map some stuff as before. But before we can do that, we need to actually create the things that we are going to map. So in here, we can create a very similar array called const pricing options. And this array is going to consist of 3 elements, just like there. ID of 1, title of basic, a price of, can change this here, $9.99. Don't forget to put the commas in. And so finally, we can say features and simply some text feature, or maybe actually an array of features. So we can say feature 1 and copy this 2 more times. Like this, and change it to 2 and 3. Then we can copy this entire object and paste it 2 more times. 1, 2. So we can say 2 and 3. This is, for example, going to cost $19.99 and $29.99. This is going to be Pro, and Premium. Finally, we can go back to our section and begin the mapping options. So in here we can say pricing options dot map feature, or rather options better. And here we will have a motion.div, as we always do. The key is going to be the motion.id, as last time, so motion.id. A class name is going to be quite long, so bg-transparent, bg-opacity-20 backdrop drop-filter backdrop blur padding-8 rounded-LG shadow-LG flex-call justify-between something's wrong with my typing. All right, in here we'll have our usual animation, so we can say initial equals like this, opacity -0 y of 20, and over for animate we'll have controls as before, so controls like this. We don't currently have them, but we will create them soon. And we'll have a transition which will be different from the last one, as it will be much, actually no, it should be the same. So transition of 0.8. Like this. Oh, actually duration of 0.8, like this. So now we can actually create the controls. They should be essentially the same as the ones in the last part. So we can simply copy this use effect and the controls part with it and paste it over here. There is an error for some reason. We might have not closed some brackets. We've closed this one. It appears we haven't closed all of these ones. Yes, now it is actually closed. We can continue working on this part. Inside this motion div, we'll have a normal div, which will not actually have a class name, simply serves to make it easier to look at. This part will have a class name of text-xl, font-bold, text-white, and margin bottom-4. In here we will have option.title. Under this we'll have a p of a class name, text-green-500, text-2xl, font-bold, margin bottom-6. This will contain the price, so option.price. Under here, we will have a UL. Yes, like this, a UL. This UL will have a class name of text-gray-500 and a margin bottom-6. In here we'll also map some stuff. So we'll have option.features.map feature like this, and we'll have a feature in here. And instant return with an li. This li will have a key of feature, so key equals feature, and we'll have a class name of margin bottom-2. In here, we'll have a feature. So like this. Also, we can actually move out of all of this, outside of the UL, and under it, we can create another div. This will hold a motion.button. This button will have a rather large class name, so let's begin. In this one, we'll have class name of bg-white, bg-opacity, -20, hover, bg-opacity, -70, text-green-500, hover, text-green-600, font-semi-bold, rounded-full, padding Y-2, padding X-6, and shadow-LG. In this button, which is make it like this, in this button we'll have an initial state, initial equals of opacity 0, and a Y of 10. Under it we'll have the animate, which will be controls, the transition is going to be duration of 0.8, and an on click, which we'll add later. This button will say choose plan. Choose plan. Then we can look if this worked, and sure enough, it did. Although the background for it seems to have disappeared. So let's see what we typed in wrongly. Instead of blur, I wrote blue, which changed everything. Although for some reason it still didn't appear. And it seems there was a small issue with this dash. The dash should solve everything. And now we have this glassmorphism effect on these cards. And the cards themselves should be done. The only thing we need to add is the modal. Now we're going to make all these buttons clickable. So let's go back to our Visual Studio Code and go over here. Under this array or wherever you want, above the return statement, we can add two use states. So we can say use state, snippet. Here we can say selected plan. By default it's going to be null, so by default no plan is selected. Next, const, or rather we can use the snippet again, use state snippet, and say is modal open. By default it's going to be false, so by default the modal is going to be closed. Next we're going to add some functions which will actually use these use states and make them work. So we can say handle choose plan equals plan arrow function, and in here we can say set selected plan to plan. Next is modal open to true. Now we can simply copy this, add another function, handle close modal. We can remove the plan, we do not need it. In here we can say null, and in here we can say false. Finally we can go to the modal. Over here under this div we can create the modal that we imported before. So this thing. And we'll have to add some attributes to it. First of all, is open. The is open attribute is going to be equal to is modal open. So if is modal open is true, then the modal opens. If not, it closes. On request close is going to be handle close modal. So what happens when the modal closes? Next, content label equals plan details, class name. So we actually need to style the modal because this is an unstyled component. So we can say modal fixed inset dash 0 flex items dash center and justify dash center. Next, we can overlay class name, something that is unique to the modal. And we can say modal dash overlay fixed inset dash 0 bg dash black bg dash opacity dash 50. And now it is done. So inside of this modal we can say selected plan and here we can create a motion.div like this. This motion div is first of all going to have a class name. The class name is going to be modal-content bg-white w-1/3 h-1/2 rounded-lg p-6 max-w-xl flex-call and justified-between. Next, we can actually add the animation to this motion div. So we can say initial, like this, is going to be opacity of 0 and a Y of 50. Next, we can add our animate. So we can say animate equals opacity of 1 and a Y of 0, as usual. Also, we can add a transition, which is going to be equal to duration of 0.5, so quite a short animation. Inside of here, we can simply have another wrapper div with no class names, and in it, we're going to have an h2, class name, text-xl, font-bold, margin bottom -4. And here we can say selected plan.title. Next, we can say p class name text-green-500 text-2xl font-bold margin bottom -6. And we can say selected plan.price. Next, we can say ul class name text-gray-600 and another class name of margin bottom -6. In this UL, we can say selected plan.features .map, and we can say feature, open another bracket. In this one, we're going to have an li with a class name of margin bottom -2. It should have a key of feature, and inside of it, it's going to have the feature. Now we can go outside this map and add a close button to this modal. So we can go above this motion div and say button. On click and handle close modal. Next, what we can do, I'll simply copy these styles from the custom button as I didn't add a handle click in it, but it doesn't matter. We can simply finish it like this and add a class name of this. And simply going to say close. The only thing we didn't add is finish the open button. So we have this button of choose plan, but we didn't yet add an on click. And the on click here is simply going to be handle choose plan, because here we have handle close modal. If everything is correct, this should in fact work. So we can reload the page. These options open. If we click choose plan, there is for. So it turns out we had a few errors in here. First of all, in this button of choose plan, instead of saying simply handle choose plan, because this function requires an argument, we need to change it into a callback function in here. So we change handle choose plan to a callback function with handle choose plan of option, like this. And this should fix it. Also, in here, instead of saying is modal open and is modal open, you need to say set is modal open and set is modal open, because that's the function that we have to use for opening and closing the model, not is modal open. That's simply the variable. So now if we reload the page, we should have everything working. As you can see, now we have for every single option, we have a different price, different features. Currently, they're all the same because obviously we didn't change anything. We simply added feature 1, feature 2, and feature 3. But in a real application, you can make options for themselves. Also, you can make, for example, a third option, or rather a fourth one, with some more detailed description, which should be in the modal, and add it somewhere over here, under it. Currently, we're not going to be doing that. Otherwise, the pricing section is fully done. Now, the only thing we have left is the footer. We can go to the footer component and start working on it. In here, we can say footer, the footer semantic tag, and we're going to make a glass morphism background for it. We can say text-white, bg-transparent, bg-opacity-20, backdrop-filter, backdrop-blur-md. Then in here we can add another div with a class name of container. Oh no, not this one. This one will be margin y-8 and border-gray-800. And this is not actually going to be a div, but a self-closing HR tag. So basically a line. Next, we can actually add the div with the container. So we can say class name, container, margin x-auto, padding y-8, padding x-6. Now we can start actually adding some elements. The layout is going to be very similar to our previous layouts. So we can say grid-calls-1, md grid-calls-3, gap-8. In here, we'll have a div and an h2 tag, which will say matrix app. This h2 tag is going to have a class name of text-2xl, font-bold, modern bottom-4, text-green-500. Under here we'll have a p tag with some information about it. So we can say p, class name, text-gray-400, and that is it. This is some information about the matrix app. Alright, so now this is done, we can actually go out of this div. Next part is going to be the links. So we can have another div in here with an h3, which will have a class name of text-xl, font-bold and margin bottom -4, text-green -400, and it will say useful links. In here we will have under it we'll have a UL, which will have a class name of text-gray-400. The allies are basically going to be our links. So we can have a link. This link is going to go to home. It's going to have a class name of hover, text-green-500 cursor-pointer. Margin bottom -2, like this. We'll add the smooth scroll, so smooth equals true. Under it, duration equals 500 and an offset of -70. I was wondering why we weren't getting any autocompletes. That is because we haven't imported the link. Now if we import it from React Scroll, everything should be working fine. Here we can write home and copy this 2 more times, I believe, or maybe more. So let's see, 1, 2, what else do we have? And well, I guess 3. So over here we can have the features. Over here, testimonials, and we could add pricing. Next, we need to change the links. So pricing, testimonials, and over here, features. Now we can add the final part of this footer and be done with the application. So we go out of the UL and we go out of this div. In here we can create another div with an h3, which will have a class name of text-xl, font-bold, margin bottom -4, text-green-500. Contact us. Under here we can have a p tag with a class name of text-gray-400 and margin bottom -4. It can say address 1234 Main Street, city, country. Under this p tag, I mean, we can simply copy it actually, copy and copy once again. In here we can say email info@gmail.com, and over here we can have the phone number, so phone +1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Now one final part, and that is going to be going under some more divs. So under this one and under this one, we can create an HR, the exact same one that we had before. So now we can technically simply go over here and copy it and paste this HR tag over here. Under this HR tag, we can put a p tag with a class name of text-center and text-gray-400. In here, we can say and copy. new date dot get full year matrix app all rights reserved. So this will automatically update the year. So let's see if the footer has been completed. And yes, it most definitely has been completed. Only one issue here. All of these are in a row, not in a column. So we can say flex dash col, like this. And now if we hover over each of them, they will become green. So yeah, we're now completely finished with the Matrix app. We have animations, we have smooth scrolling, different sections. Obviously we have the Matrix code effect, and we also have custom modals for each of these pricing sections. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. Thank you.